HP's Pavilion x360 is undoubtedly one of the most popular 2-in-1 laptops out there, and in late 2022 it was refreshed with the latest internals. This configuration in particular is rocking Intel's i5-1235U processor, 8GB of DDR4 memory in a dual channel configuration. We also have a 512GB solid state drive. Additionally, we have Intel's integrated Iris Xe graphics. Now we do have a slightly dated Wi-Fi 6 adapter on board, though we also have Bluetooth 5.3 standards on board as well. Additionally, we have a 15.6-inch Full HD touch captive convertible display on board. There is a lot to talk about in regard to this laptop, and I'm pretty excited, so let's get right into it. In terms of packaging contents, it comes in a pretty generic looking cardboard box with HP branding on it. Now once you proceed to open the actual box itself, you'll find a few things. Firstly, of course, the laptop itself. Remove all that protective packaging around it, and here you have it, the HP Pavilion x360. Now you also have a 45-watt charging adapter. Given that this is a U-series processor, this makes sense. What I don't like is that there's no USB-C charging out of the box, rather you get a proprietary pin right here. Past that, you have the standard wall outlet charging cable piece, and finally, you have the quick start warranty and regulation information packed conveniently in this envelope right here. From a design perspective, the HP Pavilion x360 looks very similar to previous generations. So you still have those sharp linear edges, you do have inverted curves, and you still have those flush hinges at the backside with metal enforced brackets. And you'll also notice you still have that same iconic HP silver color you'll probably love or hate. It's up to you. But with that said, this laptop does have an approximate weight of about 3.95 pounds, making it more or less in range for a 2-in-1 15-inch laptop. Now starting with the top side, you'll notice you have a nice high quality metallic finish, no particular texture, it's smooth and conservative in nature. However, at the center you do have a reflective HP logo, and just a fair warning, this thing is a bit of a fingerprint magnet, even though the rest of the body isn't. Still here? I'm so happy to see that. If you're enjoying what you're seeing over here, please consider subscribing to this channel and liking this video. It's just me over here. I have to do everything from recording to scripting to reviewing to researching to editing and ultimately publishing it here for you to see. And it's a lot of hard work. By subbing to this channel, you make it all worth it. Thank you so much for watching. Let's keep going. On the sides of this laptop is where you'll find all the I/O ports. So on one side you have two USB-A super speed ports, you have the DC charging port itself. On the other side, you will find a modern HDMI 2.1 port, a USB-C port that has power delivery as well as DisplayPort functionality, but it is not Thunderbolt 4 certified. You have this large air exhaust vent followed by a headphone jack. I'm a little disappointed here because frankly there should be a SD card reader or at least one more USB-C port, given that this is a 2-in-1 machine and versatility should be a priority here. The bottom of the laptop is pretty standard stuff. You have a plastic surface finish here. You'll also notice you have a rather narrow air intake vent, and this is a little concerning in terms of thermals, but more on that a little bit later. Past that, you do have two speaker grills, one on either corner, meaning this is a bottom firing stereo speaker setup. Upon unfolding this laptop, you are greeted by a high quality metallic inner chassis that looks as sturdy as it feels. Now on top of that, you'll also notice you have a decent amount of palm rest space here, which is one of the biggest benefits of getting a slightly larger 15-inch laptop. But the real key star here is that generously spaced trackpad. So aside from having a lot of surf real estate, one of the key improvements here compared to previous generations is that there's significantly less flex on this trackpad. It's way more tactile, the calibration is on point, and HP has definitely taken this component up a notch. I'm on good terms with the keyboard here as well because you have well labeled keys and the keycaps themselves aren't finicky, they're actually quite sturdy and reliable. On top of that, the keyboard is naturally fully backlit and you have the inclusion of a 10-key number pad. Now you'll also notice you have a built-in fingerprint scanner directly beneath the number pad itself. As far as the typing experience is concerned, it's pretty good but not leading in this segment, so you do have a decent amount of key travel and the actual keystrokes are quite tactile in nature but still nowhere as good as the likes of the IdeaPad 5 series for example. Hinge quality is of the utmost importance given that this is a 2-in-1 machine, and I'm happy to report that for the most part the hinges are well tuned, they don't wobble a whole lot, they are slightly more on the stiff side, but that's okay because hinges tend to get loose over time, and naturally you have a full 360-degree tilt, again because it's a 2-in-1 device. Now as far as display fitting is concerned, you do have a 89% screen to body ratio, which basically means you have a fairly thin chin at the bottom with some HG branding. The bezels are pretty narrow, though not the narrowest I've seen in this class segment, and you also have a fairly thin forehead at the bottom. What's not okay is that godforsaken 720p webcam. I don't know how HP thinks it's okay to have this on a mid-range laptop in late 2022/2023, but here we are. In the display department, things start out okay enough, but then quickly start going on a downhill. So starting with the good stuff, you have a modest Full HD display here, which equates to a 16:9 aspect ratio and a standard 60Hz refresh rate. You also have a high quality IPS panel with fantastic viewing angles. Now you'll also be happy to know you have a full multi-touch 10-point system here, which means you have full compatibility with both your fingers as well as HP's MPP 2.0 stylus. And by the way, the stylus comes included with the laptop in this region anyway, and it's fantastic. It's got a great light quality build, and I like it overall, plus it's USB-C rechargeable. Now, past that, this is where things start getting gloomy. You still have a 45% NTSC color rating, which means things look super washed out. This is now probably the 5th year where HP has not improved the color rating by even 1%. It's frankly disappointing, and that's putting it lightly, but to make matters even worse, you have a mere 250 nits peak brightness. Combine this with the ultra glossy screen you have here, and it's a glare disaster recipe. So basically, if you're using this in super bright settings, it's practically impossible to see the screen. Keep in mind, this is the base configuration here. You can also opt to get this in a more powerful i7 with up to 16GB of DDR4 memory. With that said, even with the base configuration, day-to-day activities like HD content streaming and web browsing work just fine. Even more intensive activities like web coding and 3D modeling are totally doable on here, even again with the base configuration. But where things start getting choppy is when you start doing intensive activities like 4K video editing. You'll get frequent frame drops, you do get the occasional lag, and it's just not a very healthy experience when you have multi-layer editing going on. I highly recommend opting for the more powerful i7 16GB configuration if that's your workflow. Now, gaming is in a similar situation. So games like Fortnite do struggle to maintain a healthy 30 frames per second, even at just medium settings, which means you'll frequently find yourself playing most games on the lowest possible settings if you want a healthy frame rate. Keep in mind, this is not a gaming machine, but upgrading these specs will definitely help in that case. In terms of thermals, things aren't too bad. So under unrealistic peak loads, you can hit a maximum surface temperature of just around 43 degrees Celsius, but more realistic sustained loads will yield you around 39 degrees Celsius, which is just ever so slightly above average for this class of laptops. Now with that said, fan noise isn't bad either, given you only have a single fan on board, so you can hit a maximum of 43 decibels, which really isn't all that loud, and it only happens when you really push this laptop to its limit for sustained periods. In terms of battery life, you can realistically expect about 9.5 hours on a single charge, given the activities that we've mentioned here. Now with that said, of course, your battery life will vary depending on what you're doing with this laptop and how intense the task is. In terms of the speaker quality, like I mentioned earlier, you have a bottom firing stereo speaker setup here, and the sound quality, while not industry leading, isn't bad. Have a quick listen for yourself.
There's too much that's going on, I don't know what to do. Paralyzed by options in this world, can't pick and choose. Yeah, everybody's life is on display, including you. Yeah, I feel every day is just the same, stuck in a loop. I need some variety, I'm sick of this anxiety, I'm sick of...
With an estimated value of about $970, the Pavilion X360 definitely is a mid-range laptop. Make no mistake about it. Its 2-in-1 functionality, combined with the fact that the HP MPP 2.0 pen is included in most regions, make it a decent value. Things that hold it back are pretty noticeable, including its lackluster display quality. The fact that HP still is okay with giving a 45% NTSC rating just isn't all that great. Other things that could improve include the fact that it has a poor I/O diversity going on overall, and an SD card should have been standard. However, there are things that have improved that I mentioned earlier, like the trackpad and keyboard, for example. You also get decent battery life and all the cool efficiencies that come with a U series chip. But if you really want to get the best value, I do think the i7 16GB of RAM is the ideal touch point if you're trying to get the most performance for price. Overall, let me know what you think of the x360, whether or not you'd be interested in getting one. And as always, if you enjoyed the content, please consider subbing to the channel and liking this video. Thank you so much for watching.